Trying to avoid a 1-3 start. Brissett, far side, caught.
The offseason can be a tricky time for teams. You really got to look at everything from a top-down perspective. Really try to address the needs of your team that'll help them succeed in the upcoming year and the years beyond that. A lot of these moves really determine the future of most of these franchises. But of course, that's easier said than done. The bulk of the top NFL free agents in 2023 have now found new homes, so it seems like a pretty good time to reflect on the big winners and big losers from this year's open market. Like every single year, we saw a handful of teams quickly identify and address their main roster weaknesses, putting them in good position to improve next year. And at the other end of the spectrum, there were the teams that either added the wrong guys on bad deals, or they totally fell asleep at the wheel and failed to address their biggest needs. So with that, here are 5 teams that won 2023 NFL free agency, and 5 that totally blew it.
Controls it at the moment. If it wins, Jones to Parker, reaches up.
1. The Detroit Lions. The Lions greatly exceeded expectations in 2022 by finishing 9-8, marking their first winning season since 2017. GM Brad Holmes wasted little time going to work once free agency opened. He lost running back Jamal Williams, but replaced him with ex-Chicago Bear David Montgomery. The fifth-year rusher still has plenty left in the tank, and he should find a lot more running lanes behind a Lions offensive line that is miles ahead of what he was working with in the Windy City. Detroit had football's third-worst pass defense last year. Holmes addressed that by signing corners Cameron Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, and versatile safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Sutton garnered a 71.6 grade from Pro Football Focus in 2022, and Mosley graded out at 70.9. As for Gardner-Johnson, he finished with 6 interceptions, as well as 8 passes defended. So yeah, the Lions' pass defense should be that much better. And not having Aaron Rodgers in the division will make matters that much easier. We're not used to saying this, but Lions fans, your team totally won the offseason. Congrats! Blew it, Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are entering a transition period with a new head coach in Jonathan Gannon and new GM in Monty Ossenfort. This franchise needed a clean slate, alright, but it's truly difficult to comprehend their plan based on the inactivity during free agency. Arizona lost star defensive end J.J. Watt to retirement. Another standout edge rusher, Zach Allen, bolted for the Denver Broncos in free agency. Starting quarterback Byron Murphy went to the Minnesota Vikings, and now Pro Bowl safety Budda Baker wants out. Ossenfort's 2 big signings, a middle-of-the-road linebacker and ex-Philadelphia Eagle Kaiser White, and former Indianapolis Colts wideout Zash Pascal. Not great, Bob. Kyler Murray is going to miss considerable time recovering from a torn ACL he suffered in December, too. So, what's exactly the plan here in the desert? To make Murray even more frustrated to the point where he demands a trade? You know, on second thought, maybe that is the Cardinals' plan after all, because based on their horrible offseason thus far, they could be setting themselves up to take Caleb Williams first overall in the 2024 NFL Draft. 1. New Orleans Saints. The Saints land on this list because of quality, not because of quantity. GM Mickey Loomis made just 2 notable splashes in free agency, but let me tell you, both were absolutely brilliant. For starters, he got ex-Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Derek Carr on a 4-year deal worth $150 million, giving New Orleans stability at the game's most important position. With star running back Alvin Kamara facing a potential suspension, Loomis found valuable insurance by landing ex-Detroit Lions running back Jamal Williams on a bargain 3-year deal worth $12 million. Williams is coming off a career year in which he rushed for 1,066 yards and a league-leading 17 touchdowns. He won't repeat those numbers with Kamara also occupying space in the backfield, but this could easily be football's best 1-2 punch at running back next season. Carr's final season in Vegas was a disappointment, no doubt, but he'll have 3 key factors working in his favor that he didn't have in Sin City: a top-flight offensive line, a top 10 defense, and the luxury of playing in football's worst division. Carr is already the best quarterback in the NFC South, with Tom Brady now long retired. With the second easier strength of schedule for 2023, a healthy New Orleans team and a revived Carr could totally return to Super Bowl contention. Yeah, they could have torn it all down and kickstarted a rebuild, but hey, why not go for it when you still have all that talent on your roster and are playing in the NFL's easiest division? Blew it. Houston Texans. The Texans had a plethora of needs heading into free agency. Yes, they are armed with a bunch of draft capital, but why not spend a little bit of money when you have practically limitless cap space? But GM Nick Caserio instead decided to mostly focus on one-year packs for veterans who won't be here next year. Now, we like the Devin Singletary and Dalton Schultz signings, but signing a past his prime, injury-prone wideout like Robert Woods? That's your idea of replacing Brandon Cooks? Adding ex-San Francisco 49ers safety Jimmy Ward for 2 years wasn't the worst of moves, but he's kinda on the wrong side of 30 and doesn't really fit their rebuilding plans. Guys like Case Keenum, Denzel Perryman, Sheldon Rankins, and Hassan Ridgeway were also signed to short-term deals. But again, why? These are just more veterans who are going to be gone in a year or two and won't really make much of an impact. Caserio could have made a play for bigger names like Javon Hargrave, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Zach Allen, Jacoby Myers, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tremaine Edmonds, and the list goes on and on. They have the cap space, and wouldn't it be smart to surround all those incoming rookies with talented veterans who can support and mentor them? Caserio's 2023 draft better pan out because he sure has squandered several opportunities here to rebuild a terrible roster with few potential franchise cornerstones. 1. Buffalo Bills. The Bills lost star linebacker Tremaine Edmonds to the Bears in free agency, but GM Brandon Beane was wise to not engage in a bidding war. Buffalo has more than enough talent on the roster to make up for his departure. Beane had limited financial resources, but still managed to retain star safety Jordan Poyer on a bargain 2-year deal. Ex-Saints speedster Deontay Hardy should also give Buffalo's high-powered offense another big play weapon. The Bills lost Devin Singletary, but found a nice replacement in ex-New England Patriots Damon Harris, adding the speedy back on a 1-year deal. And the vastly underrated Taylor Rapp came in on a ridiculously cheap 1-year contract worth $1.77 million. With limited cap space, Beane was able to address several roster holes without spending large sums of money. That is some savvy grade A management from a team that will once again be among the prime players for the Super Bowl. Blew it. New England Patriots. Bill Belichick went on a giant offseason spending spree in 2021. A 10-win season and a return to the playoffs following a 1-year hiatus. Belichick was surprisingly quiet in free agency last year. His one big move this year, letting Jacoby Myers walk and replacing him with the inconsistent, injury-prone Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju had a bounce-back year with Patrick Mahomes throwing him the football. Mac Jones isn't Mahomes, unfortunately, and on top of that, Myers and Jones appear to be building some solid chemistry with one another. Why wouldn't New England just play it safe and keep that duo together rather than signing Juju to a similar deal? Belichick also signed unreliable offensive lineman Riley Reif and injury-prone running back James Robinson. We did like the Mike Gesicki signing, but he'll likely walk after 1 year, even if he bounces back in Foxborough. Retaining Jonathan Jones on a 2-year deal was a minor victory, we suppose, but Belichick didn't add any new impactful starters on defense, and Reif isn't the solution to helping the O-line rebound. We hate criticizing the greatest head coach of all time, but how are the Patriots supposed to return to relevance when all 3 of their AFC East rivals made significant moves to get better and they didn't? This just feels like a team that'll be mired in mediocrity once again in 2023. 1. Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons finally got out of Matt Ryan's brutal contract and entered this year with plenty of cap space for the first time in forever. GM Terry Fontenot wasted no time spending that money on key roster needs, specifically the defense. Though we still believe it to be a giant overpay, adding ex-Cincinnati Bengals safety Jesse Bates III was a worthwhile move. The ball-hawking specialist can only improve Atlanta's never-ending issues against the pass. Ex-Saints defensive linemen David Onyemata and Caden Ellis, and perennial Pro Bowler Calais Campbell were added to bolster the front 7, and bringing in Bud Dupree on a 1-year deal was a low-risk move following his disappointing run with the Tennessee Titans. If Dupree is healthy, he could push for double-digit sacks once again. And if sophomore Desmond Ridder isn't the answer at quarterback, well, ex-Washington Commanders quarterback Taylor Heineke is more than serviceable as a bridge option. And you know, he could definitely flourish in that offense with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Tyler Algier. Fontenot addressed most of Atlanta's pressing needs, and aside from Bates, he didn't have to break the bank too much. If most of these signings don't pan out, so be it. At least they tried to address their biggest needs. Atlanta won 7 games last year with one of football's worst rosters. They can only get better from here, meaning they'll certainly be a contender in the very winnable NFC South. blew it. Baltimore Ravens. The fact the Ravens couldn't get clarity on Lamar Jackson's future was a giant loss for starters. Jackson revealed in a Twitter thread that he requested a trade before they placed the franchise tag on him. So again, that is a big L. Baltimore's defensive line was a weakness last season, yet they've already lost two reliable performers in Justin Houston and Calais Campbell. The guard, Ben Powers, was lost to the Denver Broncos in free agency, and the team didn't find a suitable replacement for ex-Pro Bowl corner Marcus Peters. As for the need for wide receivers, well, signing a past his prime Odell Beckham Jr. and Mr. Inconsistent Nelson Aguilar to help Jackson was certainly something. These guys aren't moving the needle, though. So, yeah, how are the Ravens supposed to keep pace with the AFC's top clubs like the Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, Chargers, and Dolphins? Their receiving core is still a weakness. The D-line got even worse, and the O-line lost a key starter. And GM Eric DeCosta has done very little to fix any of this. It's been a rough offseason for the Ravens thus far, and it doesn't really look like it's gonna get too much better. 1. Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks were football's ultimate surprise team in 2022, winning 9 games in year 1 of the post-Russell Wilson era. Geno Smith's comeback player of the year season and immense contributions from their 2022 rookie class propelled Seattle to 9 wins and the NFC's final wildcard spot. GM John Schneider won the offseason when he extended Smith to a reasonable 3-year extension worth $105 million. Schneider's big addition was ex-Broncos defensive lineman Draymond Jones, landing him on a 3-year contract worth $51 million. Jones addresses a pressing need on the D-line, having recorded at least 5.5 sacks in each of the last 3 years. But Jones wasn't the only notable player the Seahawks signed to address a leaky front seven. Old friend Bobby Wagner, who is surprisingly cut by the Los Angeles Rams, returned to Seattle on a 1-year contract. Wagner was as good as ever for the Rams last year, and there's no reason to believe he'll suddenly drop off in his return to Seattle. We loved the signing of ex-Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker and 2019 first-round pick Devin Bush, who just might revive his career under Pete Carroll. He wouldn't be the first successful reclamation project in the Pacific Northwest. Ex-New York Giants safety Julian Love also signed a cheap 2-year deal worth $12 million, adding more depth to a rapidly improving secondary. Add it all up, and the Seahawks should be even better than the 2022 group that greatly exceeded expectations. Blew it, Las Vegas Raiders. Moving on from Derek Carr was necessary, but the Raiders' decision to replace him with an inferior and extremely injury-prone Jimmy Garoppolo was interesting. Jimmy G signed a 3-year deal worth $67.5 million with the Raiders, reuniting him with old friend Josh McDaniels. Yeah, sorry, but Garoppolo without Kyle Shanahan isn't going to suddenly make this team a contender in the AFC West. The Jacoby Myers signing was a fine move, but receiver wasn't exactly a pressing need. They didn't at all address their pathetic offensive line and added exactly 0 impact defensive players to one of football's most helpless units. So this was the Raiders' master plan to rebound from a 6-win season following a surprise playoff berth in 2021, to replace Carr with a worse quarterback, and to essentially swap out Darren Waller for Jacoby Myers? Ugh. Hey, good luck with that, Raiders Nation. But which other teams won 2023 NFL free agency, and which ones do you think totally blew it? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.